Hello and welcome to Crafting with Kara. I keep titling these Yack and Yarns because we're chatting about yarn and stuff, but I keep also saying Crafting with Kara. So I don't know which one I'll commit to, but I welcome to Yack and Yarn then. I like starting off with where what puppies I've got around and where they are. So today I've got Mahogany on the big couch and Ginger on the little one, but they're both asleep, so I'll show you them. So here's Mahogany. And she's so sleepy. She sleeps in the funniest different ways that she lays her head around. And then Ginger's over here. There's Ginger. She's totally fine. I know she's in a donut, but it's just because she has allergies. I don't know if others of you have French bulldogs, but she has allergies and she's on allergy medication, but certain times she just licks her paws a little bit too much, and so she genuinely likes the donut. You can see she's using it like a pillow. So that's our little solution to her licking her paws a little bit more than we anticipate that she should. But she's good. She's on pills and everything like that. She's a sweet little thing. And as you notice, they're both on couches because Ginger's gone a full week without any accidents inside the house. Yeah, I mean it's the simple victories, you know. There was a while where every single day it was something. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Ginger just looked at me and twitched. But yeah, it's been a whole at least a week. It's been pretty exciting. We've been pretty thrilled about it. I'm very excited. So that's just great news in our house. Do you have any fun little small victories? What's exciting to you? What have you done lately? Yeah, I just can't. I'm excited. I'm glad that she's out of the habit and realizes things. I don't know what got her weirdly into having accidents left and right. I feel like we need a little poster that says number of days without incidents and check it off. Again, just about staying hydrated. Today I'm drinking some pumpkin spice tea. I'm just really soaking in the autumnal vibes. I'm very excited. And I even got my little French bulldog mug that says possum, which is fun. Oh, hi Mahogany. Yes. And there, yes. I know. When I start talking, she starts going, why are we talking all of a sudden? This is weird. Yeah. Can I not sip tea? Oh goodness. Can you back up? I have hot tea in my hands. We can't spill, goofus. So yeah, that mug was given to me by a friend back when I lived in Colorado. We would dog sit a lot of our friends who had dogs if they ever left. And one of our thank you for watching our dogs was was that mug, along with another matching mug that I had a little hound on it. And I think the hound's wearing a hat instead of glasses and a bow tie. Yes, Mahogany. Oh my goodness. Yes, he has so much love. You're such a sweet girl. Mahogany's just such a kissy little dog. Moving on. I'm wearing another sweater. Like I said, I'm soaking up the autumnal vibes. This one is, and I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget, is the sugary brown. It's a free pattern, and I pretty much knit it to pattern, and it ended up fitting really great. I would have made the sleeves just a touch longer. When I blocked it, they're just right at my knuckle bone, and that's not a knuckle. That's a wrist knuckle. I don't know. It's right there, which some people love. I just would have gone, half an inch longer. I think the reason that my length was a little bit shorter than the pattern was because the one modification I did make was I put cables on the side of my arms rather than in the pattern. They had a cable coming up across the chest, which in retrospect, maybe I should have done that and the arms. I really like the arms. I feel like the chest is missing just a touch, but if you wear a necklace or something, I feel like it ends up going all right. But yeah, one cable across the chest would have been nice. It's an off-centered one in the pattern. It looks really cool. I like it. But I just ended up doing cables across my arms because that's what I was picturing. And then when I found this pattern, I thought I can modify it and it'll work out. So I love the way it fits, except for the wrist. Usually I just end up pulling it a little bit or scrunching it forward, which the scrunching works out great because it's DK yarn. And I gotta say, frequently DK gets warm when you're inside houses and stuff. So I don't mind this being the solution because then it like airs out just a little bit. It makes it better. Although at one point I knit a fingering weight t-shirt and then I thought, what weather are you wearing that for? So I'm still learning how to figure out how to wear my handmade knits inside around people. When I go outside like a corn maze or a pumpkin patch, fantastic. In the summer, I'm one that doesn't wear knits too often. Maybe I'll like do something really light or like socks. But the spring is the same way as this, where I'll wear it on cool days and I feel really great. It's like you don't need a hoodie. You instead are wearing something you made and you love. So I highly recommend this. I'll put the link down at the bottom of the Ravelry page. But again, it's a free pattern. So if you've got a sweater's worth of a sweater's quantity worth of yarn and you're not sure what to do with it and you'd like a DK sweater, maybe go for it. The yarn itself is made out of, I tried to look it up. I can't recall the handmade dyer, but back when I had a big fancy full-time corporate job, I wanted this kind of thing to be to be a really fall sweater. And so I it was definitely on the higher end of buying yarn, but I was really excited about it. It was like my first, purchase of it's going to be a sweater's quantity. And I saw this skein and I loved it. It was their like seasonal one. So I don't think this company has that same yarn anymore, even if I remembered, but I think it was like Highlands. It's some Michigan dyer. The logo had a tree on it. Highland trees. I don't know. So that's what I'm wearing. I'm sipping on some tea. I don't know if any of you guys watch Jeopardy, but we got some yarn shout outs lately. I thought it was super fun to learn. I'm going to share my fun trivia fact. That a skein of yarn, right? Like a little bundle, like a hank of yarn is a skein, but a skein is also a flock of birds flying in the air, either in like a flying V shape or in like if they're all migrating and there's a huge amount of them, then they kind of lose their V and it becomes this huge mess of birds. Which one website, when I was looking this up, called A Tangle of Wool, which I thought was fun. But yeah, so a skein of birds exists as well as a skein of yarn. And a skein of birds is often like geese in a flying V or pelicans or cranes or something like that. But yeah, like flying birds often in a V is a skein of birds. Just a fun tidbit. You can thank Jeopardy for that, but you can drop that to your knitting group if you've got one. So have fun. All right. Before I dive into Clue 2 of Mystery Knit Along, the Stephen West Mystery MusiKAL, just in case a few of you are avoiding spoilers, I thought, why not show some FOs? Right before Clue 1, I was knitting, not necessarily to clear off needles. I don't know if you're someone who wants to clear off needles before they start a new project. I'm not that person at all, but basically because I couldn't knit before the second on the mystery shawl, I thought, well, what can I knit? And I looked around and I had some baby blankets that were like 20, 30% done. And so I thought, let's get these done. So first one I'll show is knitting. And then I made a crochet one as well. So this one is a Burnett blanket yarn. So it's that like polyester plastic kind of a like whatever, but it's really soft. And that means that it's a baby blanket for the mom to be, that it's going to be machine washable, and it'll be really nice that way she can just like throw it in the back of the car or something, and it can be a car blanket is what I've heard a lot of people use my baby blankets for, because apparently it's like less safe to have a blanket in a crib. But it can also just be like a cozy house blanket as well. She's got a few other kids already, and we just started working together, and then she told me she was expecting. So she mentioned that this is going to be her first homemade knit blanket, which in my opinion kind of relieved the stress a little, because I know it'll be the best handmade knit blanket that she's got. So this one had like self color pooling, all the color changes it did on its own. I think it was called Mini Succulents. I got it at Joann Fabrics when it was going out of business. And so when she told me she was pregnant, I went upstairs to my Joann Fabrics little stockpile from when it was going out of business and found this blanket's quantity. And so I made this. So I'll show it off just now. It's nothing too exciting. I wanted a simple mindless knit. So a lot of these are stockinette and then there's sections of garter. And so I don't know if you can tell, but it makes like ribbed rows, especially because it's so highly textured, like the color is. You can hardly see the physical like yarn texture, but maybe you can a little. So there's like a garter bump and then there's the stockinette and a garter bump and so on. This one I can throw the pattern out as well. It was, I just kind of scrolled through baby blankets and wanted a free pattern as well. I didn't necessarily even like open the pattern to like read and see how many to cast on or anything, but I got inspiration from it, so I can throw it out to people who are interested. It might be a different weight yarn completely, but basically I wanted to see something that was, again, pretty mindless and yet just a little bit of interest, so that way I can say that I made her something a little bit different than she would have gotten if it was just, you know, standard stockinette. So I think the color's really great. She doesn't know if it's going to be a boy or a girl, but she is hoping it's a boy, but she also has girls already. So that's why I thought this would work out great. If she ends up having a girl as well, then that's fine because it's not overly boyish. Also, gender roles are dumb, so who cares? You can love whatever colors you want to love. But I knew that her little preschool girls would love, you know, the flashes of pink, and that her hopefulness in a boy would show up there. So yeah, that's my most recent finish, and one that I started way earlier. I was cat sitting for a friend, and just fun info about me. I'm allergic to cats, but I also want to hang out at her apartment with the cat. So I always pick a project that I then can only knit at her house or only knit around like people that I'm going to be surrounded by cats with, because the cat dander will like stick around. So I started this back in June, and then I put it on pause for a really long time. I wanted the, again, dander to kind of calmed down. And then when a friend who owns a cat told me that she was expecting, I thought, well, perfect. Because at the time when I started this crocheted one, I didn't know exactly what I wanted or who it would belong to. And then she mentioned she was expecting. And so I thought, it's kismet. So this one's going to a cat friend. Again, doesn't know the gender, but her and her husband like blues and greens. So I went up to my Joann Fabric stock. This is Burnett again. This one's Burnett Blanket. And then the center section is Burnett Dappled Ombre, I think. The center section is my first corner to corner crochet. And then because it ended up being maybe the normal size for people's blankets, but for me it ended up looking small for a baby blanket. So I ended up adding a bunch of crocheted border. So I'll show that now. So again, that center section is a whole different skein, and it's a corner to corner ombre, which is why it starts out light and ends in a darker corner. And then I've got crocheted border from that same like teal family. So I added something over here, and I added a much longer section on this side to make it more rectangular. So I do crochet. This one to me looks definitely more homemade, just because it's a little bit lumpier when you anticipate it being flat and things like that. My like joins aren't as smooth, but that's okay to me. I think it looks fabulous. Again, it's super soft and machine washable. Mom will love it. So those are my finished objects. This one's my like corner to corner plus crochet. And then I've got that stockinette or garter and stockinette baby blanket. All right, now is the thing maybe that you've been waiting for. And, you know, if you skipped ahead to this point, that's perfect too. I'm going to start talking about the Stephen West Mystery Knit-Along Clue 2. So if you are avoiding things, swipe away now. And if you are not and you're excited to watch, then I'm glad to have you here. So let's talk about Stephen West's Mystery MusiKAL Clue 2. All right. I will show you how far I've gotten so far. Oh, that's the wrong side. I am not finished yet. I even got to a stopping point so that way I would be able to knit while we chat. But here it is. So this one's the squiggles. Clue 2 is right here. Some modifications. The only modification I made, I had a dark green. Let me grab it. I had a dark green that I only had one skein of, which again, since I'm doing DK, I would need two of. So I knew I didn't necessarily have the yardage I needed, but I did this dark one as one of my additional colors. Stephen talked about you can use 4 colors and your, mohair could be the fourth color. Instead, I still used color C as my mohair, and I added this dark green. And I think it's a really fun addition. I like the way that it works with all of them. So here's my squiggles. Because I've got 4 colors, it means I'm going to have 3 of the blue stripes and then 2 of all the others. So I've got a dark green, a yellow, and a like bright standard green. Here I just finished another dark green, and I'm going to be working on a yellow. Did anyone else, when they started this, which now I'm going to stitch on it, so I hope you enjoyed seeing it actually done, because now the needles are going to go into position. So did anyone else think when you were done with squiggle 1 that it was going to go kind of like, so it was squiggle 1 slanted this way. I thought we were going to go the other way and make like, triangles that laid on each other to make it nice and flat. Whereas instead we've got a crazy slant going on, which is super fun in my opinion. I like that I don't know where it's going next. I think that that's kind of enjoyable to me. I know one of the fun mantras and rhymes are in Stephen we trust. So I do trust that this, shape is going to resolve itself. It's going to look cool and it's going to be pretty awesome. As far as Clue 2 goes, I am loving the process. I can sit here right now and I can just kind of stitch away, which has been lovely for going out and about. I've been able to take it to, during lunch to work on it, and maybe not even get a whole row, because sometimes it's a short lunch and it's a long row, but in general it's nice to only have to count, the eyelet rows. Definitely you have to pay attention to and count a lot, and then the beginning of even rows, whichever one it is. I stopped looking at the pattern because I've gotten into the rhythm. So in general, you only have to count a little bit, and then after that, it's pretty much just tick, 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 tick. Some tips in case you are, in the middle of Clue 2 like I am. In the beginning, on the side that you always have to do a knit front back, I kept forgetting to do a knit front back. And I'm never one to frog. So either I would just add an increase like 5 stitches in and it wouldn't be in the perfect placement, or I would add it somewhere or something. But so that happened like twice that I had forgotten increases. So then I added a little stitch marker on that side. So that way when I was there, I could be like, oh, knit front back. I have colored stitch markers. So I got a blue one to be like knit front back. Back is blue. I don't know. But either way, the stitch marker genuinely helped me. When I saw it on that side, and it's on the right side, then it ended up happening. And you can see the little like rib that it makes, which I think is pretty cute. Right after the I cord, there's like a little dip, and then it goes back to being garter. And I think it's from that knit front back, which is fantastic. So I love everything about this. I think it's really cool. The squiggles are definitely giving me like topographic map vibes, as well as like wood grain. Not when you cut it like a cookie, but when you cut it like, upwards, the way that the tree grows. It's like reminding me of wood grain like that, which I think is really fun, very like naturey. First we've done scallops and now we've done wood grain, so that's fun in my opinion. I know that it's like music and it's a different song. It definitely feels like a different song, but in the same album for sure. So I'm excited about that. I'm curious to see what people online, are are doing with their colors. One of them on Ravelry was an all the same color, which every year there's like one person who does it, and I love it. I think it's so fantastic. One of these years when he says you need 4 or 5 colors, I think I'm going to be bold and I'm going to try to make an all one color shawl. One year during shawlography, if I remember correctly, somebody did like a cream colored one. And it was so cool because everything was so highly textured that you could still see every little thing, except for maybe like 1 or 2 sections where it ended up being garter, kind of like what we're doing now on the squiggles, where there was a lot less popping left and right. But that's okay too, to have like a section that's a little bit more subtle. And if you're already being that adventurous person who's doing the one color, then maybe you add the beads or the sequins or something like that. You can add something to make that garter section a little bit more exciting. But yeah, so the monocolors I think are super cool. I saw some people in Clue 1 go even more, a modification-y than I did, because if you recall, I made the even number shells 2 and 4 have a different eyelet color. So here the eyelet color is yellow, and here the eyelet color is blue. Other people did 3 separate rows of difference, or they did, just lots of different variations, which was super cool. Which is why I love doing this. Part of the community where you get to see what people do is just fantastic. I'm really excited to see what Clue 3 is. When I was first done, with 4 squiggles, I was thinking, oh, this is going to take me like one other day. I'm going to be done and I'm going to have like no knitting this whole week. What am I going to do? But honestly, since they get bigger and bigger, it takes more and more time. So it's more knitting than I thought, because at first I thought there was hardly any knitting, and I was honestly a little disappointed. I was like, come on, Clue 2. Like, I've been keeping up with Clue 1. Let's give me a little bit more. But I think it ended up being really good for me, especially because of how much I've got like working and other stuff going on. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? Did you keep up with Clue 1? Are you avoiding spoilers and everything? And if you're still in the thick of Clue 1, how are you feeling? If you are in Clue 2, how are you feeling about that? And if you are completely done with Clue 2, did you think the same thing, that like you finished it so much faster than Clue 1 and it was like less stitches? I know some people go through the math and do like how many physical stitching each clue is. This one, I feel like even if you count all that, it's not necessarily going to hold up the same, because Clue 1 was so like technique heavy, whereas Clue 2 isn't, which again, I love. I'm excited that I get to watch stuff. Last night I watched a movie with my husband, and I just got to knit the whole time, and I still got to read all the subtitles and watch everything, and I missed nothing, and it was great because it was this. Then I came to an eyelet row and I had to put the knitting down. So yeah, I am very much loving this. The one criticism, itty bitty, is Stephen talked about a soloist this week. And I gotta say, if I was a kid who was told that I had a solo in like high school choir or something, and then my piece ends up being the size of these eyelets, I think I'd go home and be sad. I'd be like, what? I was told I got a solo, but really the people doing the harmony gets so much of a bigger part. Yes, they're sharing their attention, where there's like these 4 stripes and they're very loud. My solo is so little. Now, I will say that I saw people online that their like mohair color or their eyelets section that didn't have mohair, that like if they chose a crazy color, amazing. I love it. Mine, I feel like just because of the way it is, my yellow stands out. That's the way the colors are. That's why I wanted to add that dark green, just to be like, oh yeah, there's like both a real low and a real high and then 2 mids. But yeah, the eyelet section is not pre-blocked. Maybe after blocking it'll look different, but pre-blocked, to me, I wouldn't call it a soloist. I would like, it's like grout, who pays attention to the grout when you're tiling? You look at the beautiful tiles and then you see grout in between. So I personally am again, I know I talked in the first video about not necessarily hoping for something, but just like seeing what happens and expecting, being like, oh, look, it happened. But I gotta say, I'm hoping Color C gets to step in more and have a bigger section, he talked about being a soloist and, being eyelets is fun, but I want, my Beyonce to show up a little bit more. Yes, I love Kelly. Kelly Rowland is great too, but I want to get some Beyonce moments to have her Lemonade album kind of vibe. So yeah, that's my one. Concern is that I love my Color C, and I think a lot of people on the Ravelry pages all said like Color C is my favorite, and he talked about it being a solo. I want it to sing the most. So let's hopefully hear those colors' voices. That's my one thought. So yeah, I'm loving this in every other way. Again, I have hope that in the future that Color C will show up more. Maybe even this one, I didn't look ahead to see about color placement. I just kind of like listened. I read the pattern. I figured it, and I was like, okay, I think I got it. And I dove in without jumping to the end of the video. And I don't regret anything, but again, I just, maybe a Color C stripe would have been fun. I don't know. That's what I'll have to figure out later. But in general, loving every single stitch. And I hope C gets to step up in front and get the spotlight more, their little opera moment. And oh yeah, one more thing. So these rows include stitch markers, and I feel like a lot of the Instagram people are talking about their stitch markers. I wanted to talk about a low-key, like a non-expensive, but still fun way to be a stitch marker. So my stitch marker that I've been using is this fun little tassel, and it's got, like I mentioned, I have colored stitch markers, but even if you don't have colored stitch markers and you've got these little light bulb stitch markers, this came from a whole bundle at Michael's. And so if you go to Michael's, you can go to like, I want to call it the stitch marker section because that's all I use it for, but it's charms. So I got a whole, cluster of all these little tassels. And this was probably like, the whole thing was maybe like $4. And now I can put it on different stitch markers, and I've got little tassels. Either it can be, if I'm doing color work and I've got like different sections, like every 8, I need a stitch marker. Well, now I've got plenty. Or if I just need a beginning of row, I'll use one of these. I think it's just fun because that way you don't have to pay an arm and a leg for these like gorgeous stitch markers that are super handmade. If you're already at Michael's buying like yarn, especially now that Joann Fabrics is gone, swing by the charms. I've gotten one that's like a little gumball machine, one that's like a daisy. So yeah, it's just fun to swing by and see those. And they're significantly less expensive, and you just add them to stitch markers, like the standard light bulbs that you own already. So like you can see what's holding this up is like what is it? Like a brass looking stitch marker. And so that's how I keep them all together. But this is my colored ones. I've got the cocoa knits. No, this isn't. Oh yeah, it is cocoa knits. That one was from my local yarn store, so little shout out to them. But yeah, eventually I might take little like each color and put it on a different one. But even ones that don't necessarily have colors, like these are all very colory little tassels. But I've gotten ones that I dig Star Wars, so I bought some Star Wars charms, and so now I've got a bundle of Star Wars stitch markers. And then there's one that's like a little frog because I like frogs, and when my mom started knitting, I got her like a whale tail. So I think it's fun. It doesn't mean that you have to like break the bank. It's just a way that you can, when you go to your, you're knitting in public, if you do, or if you just like looking at your stitch markers and admiring them yourself, it's a way that you can do that without breaking the bank. So that's a personal thing that I love. And I've met people who have been like, oh, I didn't even know Michael's has little like stitch marker kind of ideas. And at least for these, they're like already on the little like silver hook and every silver hoop. So like that's already there. You don't have to like buy a jewelry making kit to like get a little hoop and do a bunch of stuff. All you gotta do is put a stitch marker on it. So that's my fun hot take. So regretfully, I can't shout out some like beautiful handmade thing, but it does mean that I saved like $10. So, little wins and things like that. Not to mention, I like tassels. I mean, just like how I like feeling yarn, I'm sure you do too. I like feeling little like the tassels are fun. And then I can even put like red and green ones together for Christmas and things like that. So I'm very excited. So that's my fun tip. And then I gave you my fun bit of trivia. So I hope you are enjoying things and you are loving every stitch you are making. From my house to yours, I hope you are enjoying everything you're working on. And if you're not, walk away and take a break. It's not that big a deal. Have a lovely time and keep on keeping on, or take a break. It's if you end up being like after Clue 2 that you're quitting the mystery knit along, that's fine. That's okay too. Just make what you love and love what you make. So all right, have a good week and I'll see you later.